Some breaking news now because the new Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, has announced her new shadow cabinet. Mhari's here. So, who are the runners and riders?
OK, so lots and lots that have been announced so far. Let me take you through them. So the ones we already knew, Mel Stride, Shadow Chancellor. So he'll be facing off Rachel Reeves at the dispatch box. Next up, Chris Philp. He's now the Shadow Home Secretary. Chris Philp used to be a policing minister under Rishi Sunak. So that is really interesting that he's now gone up in the ranks in his party, albeit in opposition. Priti Patel, as we were saying earlier, confirmed to be the Shadow Foreign Secretary, a massive comeback for her after a bit of a tricky time, perhaps on the back benches. And then also Shadow Defence Secretary James Cartledge. Now, defence is often an area in which the Tories normally feel relatively confident. So that's interesting that they've chose James Cartledge. Let me talk you through a few of the others as well. So Shadow Health Secretary Ed Agar, Shadow Education, as we've heard yesterday, Laura Trott, Shadow Business, Andrew Griffith. Now, that's interesting because there was a lot of talk about whether he might be Shadow Chancellor. Oh, there we go, we've got more on our screen there. And look, you've got the leadership rival Robert Jenrick confirmed to be Shadow Justice Secretary as well. Also, Helen Whately, she's Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary. And interesting, look at that. Victoria Atkins is the Shadow...
Environment.
What does that say on the screen?
Food and Rural Affairs.
There we go, yes, DEFRA. Now, that's interesting because Victoria Atkins did not support Kemi Badenoch in the leadership race. She supported Robert Jenrick quite vocally. She was often the kind of one nation poster girl that was considered to be a justification for why Robert Jenrick could unite different factions of the party, even though he was considered a bit of a right-winger. So that's interesting that she's gone. A bit of a demotion for her, but nonetheless, she's still in the shadow cabinet, so you can't really complain. Interestingly, look at this. Claire Coutinho, she stays as Shadow Energy Secretary. She was Energy Secretary under Rishi Sunak. You have this little group of people, Laura Trott, Claire Coutinho, they were both around Rishi Sunak, big supporters of Rishi Sunak. Also, Alan Mack, Andrew Bowie, big supporters of Kemi Badenoch. They've both got shadow cabinet roles. Alan Mack is the Shadow Science and Tech Secretary. Andrew Bowie, who we had on the programme just yesterday, wasn't it? He is now Shadow Scottish Secretary. Then for the other devolved nations, we have Alex Burghardt for Shadow Northern Ireland Secretary, and also Mims Davies for Shadow Welsh Secretary as well. There's a few others, Shadow Culture, Stuart Andrew, Gareth Bacon for Shadow Transport as well. So that whole thing has been announced. And I think also later on today, we're expecting more announcements. So the full Shadow Cabinet list has been released. However, this is interesting. No job for Tom Tugendhat. Now, we were talking, weren't we, about
also
Tom
a runner
Tugendhat.
for leading the
Exactly,
party.
he was one. So we have Mel Stride, we have Robert Jenrick, we have Priti Patel. All those three said are in the shadow cabinet. James Cleverly said he wouldn't stand, and then obviously you had Kemi. And then the sixth person was Tom Tugendhat. He is not there. Very interesting that either he wasn't asked or he didn't accept what he was offered. So we'll try and find that out. And also, it says later in the week, Kemi Badenoch will appoint the remainder of the team on a rolling basis. So that's the big announcement. Those are the headline names. And then slowly but surely, we'll get a bit of a trickle out of the more junior shadow ministers throughout the week as well.
And we heard from Nigel Huddleston, the Conservative co-chairman, acknowledging that some people will have to double up on their briefs because there's 124 people in the government ministerial positions, etc., and there's 121 Conservatives. Some people are going to have to do a fair bit of work, you know, and some have ruled themselves out, like Jeremy Hunt, for example.
Exactly. Jeremy Hunt, Oliver Dowden, James Cleverly, big names, Steve Barclay, all ruling themselves out as well. So, yeah, those are the headline names. Interesting, no job for Tom Tugendhat. Interesting that Victoria Atkins is still in the shadow cabinet despite backing Robert Jenrick.
We'll see how it all shakes down. Mhari, thank you so much.